Maya Rodriguez sat in the corner of the huge waiting room. Around her, aliens from all over the galaxy filled out papers for the biggest fighting contest in known space. The Apex Challenge happened once every year on Nexus Prime Station. Winner would be called the best fighter in the entire galaxy. She looked around at the other fighters. A massive blue creature with 4 arms stretched each limb one at a time. Its muscles bulged under thick skin that looked like armor. Near the registration desk, a snake-like alien coiled and uncoiled its long body. Sharp teeth showed when it opened its mouth to hiss at another competitor. The Craxian fighters drew the most attention. They looked like giant insects made of living crystal. Their leader, Vexter, had won the championship 3 times in a row. His body sparkled under the lights as he moved. When he flexed his claws, they made scratching sounds against the metal floor dot. Maya kept her head down and continued filling out her forms. She wore a simple gray uniform with no special markings. Her brown hair was tied back in a basic ponytail. Next to the towering aliens around her, she looked tiny and weak. "Look at this," said a voice behind her. "Another human thinks she can fight." Maya did not turn around. She recognized the speaker as Commander Thane, a red-skinned Brutari whose people had conquered many worlds through war. Scars covered his arms and face like a map of old battles. "They never learn," Thane continued, speaking loud enough for others to hear. "Humans are soft. Their skin tears like paper. Their bones break like twigs. What makes them think they belong here?" Other aliens started to look in Maya's direction. Some laughed. Others shook their heads in what might have been pity. A few made clicking or growling sounds that probably meant the same thing in their languages. Maya finished her paperwork and stood up. She was 5 feet and 6 inches tall. Most of the aliens in the room were at least a foot taller than her. Some were twice her size. Captain Lisa Johnson walked over to Maya. Johnson commanded the human military unit stationed on Nexus Prime. Her face showed worry as she approached. "Rodriguez, I need to ask you one more time. Are you sure about this?" Johnson spoke quietly so the aliens would not hear. "The medical bay has 3 beds ready just for human fighters who get hurt in the first round. This is not a game." Maya looked up at her captain. Her dark eyes were calm and steady. "I have trained for this my whole life, Captain. Someone needs to show them what humans can really do." "But look around you," Johnson said. "These creatures were born to fight. Some of them have natural armor. Others have claws that can cut through steel. That Zephyrian over there has poison in her bite that can kill most species in minutes." Maya nodded. "I know what they can do, but they do not know what I can do." Johnson wanted to say more, but she could see that Maya had made up her mind. "Just be careful. We cannot afford to lose good people in these contests." Maya walked to the registration desk. The alien behind it had 6 eyes on stalks that moved independently. It barely looked at her papers before stamping them with a loud thud. "Preliminary round tomorrow at 8 in the morning, station time," the alien said in a bored voice. "Medical insurance form is on page 3. You will probably need it, mammal." As Maya walked away from the desk, she heard more comments from the other fighters. "I give her 30 seconds, one said. "Too long," said another. "Humans break fast." "Why do they even let mammals enter?" asked a third voice. "It is embarrassing to watch." Maya found an empty chair near the wall and sat down. She closed her eyes and began to breathe slowly and deeply. This was part of her training. Her grandfather had taught her to find calm in any situation. The room continued to buzz with activity. Fighters from dozens of worlds compared their natural weapons and abilities. Some had multiple arms or legs. Others could change the color of their skin or shoot electricity from their bodies. A few could regenerate lost limbs if they got hurt. Maya opened her eyes and watched them. She studied how each species moved. She noticed which ones favored their right side over their left. She saw who had trouble with quick direction changes. Her grandfather had taught her to see these things. Most people looked, but did not observe. Group of hegemony officials walked through the room. These were the aliens who ran most of the galaxy's trade and politics. They wore expensive clothes and jewelry that showed their wealth and power. The human entry list keeps growing each year, one of them said, but the results stay the same. None of them make it past the first round. Perhaps we should create a separate category for mammals, suggested another. Something more appropriate for their abilities. Like a cooking contest, the officials laughed at this joke. Other aliens nearby joined in. Maya heard all of this but kept her face neutral. Getting angry would not help her tomorrow. A young human. Soldier approached Maya. His name tag read, Private Clark. He looked nervous as he sat down next to her. Excuse me, Lieutenant Rodriguez. I watched your training sessions back on the ship. You move different than other people. Where did you learn to fight like that? Maya looked at the young man. He was probably 20 years old with blonde hair and blue eyes. Like most humans, he looked fragile compared to the aliens around him. My grandfather taught me, she said simply. Was he in the military? No. He learned from his grandfather, who learned from his grandfather before him. It goes back a very long time. Clark looked confused. But humans have only been in space for about 60 years. What kind of fighting technique could be that old? Maya smiled slightly. The kind we needed to survive on Earth before we reached. The stars. I do not understand. You will, Maya said. Tomorrow, everyone will understand. The announcement system crackled to life. All competitors report to your assigned quarters for rest period. Competition begins at 800 hours tomorrow morning. Medical teams will be standing by. Maya stood up and gathered her things. As she walked toward the exit, she passed. Groups of aliens still discussing the upcoming fights. Most of the talk focused on which non-human fighter would face Vexther in the final round. None of them mentioned Maya at all. To them, she was just another weak human who would be eliminated. Quickly and forgotten. They had no idea that she represented something much older and more dangerous than any of them could imagine. Maya reached her small quarters and sat on the narrow bed. Tomorrow, she would remind the galaxy why Earth was called a death world, and why the children of that world should never be underestimated. She closed her eyes and began her evening meditation, just as her grandfather had taught her many years ago. Maya woke up at 6 in the morning. She ate a simple breakfast of bread and water, then spent an hour doing slow movements her grandfather had taught her. These were not exercises that most people would recognize. They looked like a slow dance. But each movement had a purpose. At 7:30, she walked to the main arena. The huge dome could hold 50,000 spectators, but only the lower levels were full today. The preliminary rounds did not draw big crowds. Most people would wait until the real champions started fighting. Maya found the fighter waiting area. Dozens of aliens sat on benches or paced around the room. Some did warm-up exercises that involved lifting heavy weights or punching metal training bags. Others meditated in ways that looked strange to human eyes. Large screens on the walls showed the early matches. Maya watched a Craxian fighter named Zektar face off against a Mordian warrior. The Mordian had thick gray skin and tusks like Anne. Elephant. He looked strong enough to break rocks with his bare hands. The fight lasted 43 seconds. Zektar moved faster than Maya had expected. His crystal claws left deep cuts in the arena walls as he dodged the Mordian's charges. When he finally attacked, his claws went through the Mordian's thick skin like it was soft cloth. The Mordian fell and did not get up. The crowd cheered. Maya studied how Zektar moved. His species was built for fighting, but they had patterns. like every living thing. She filed this information away in her mind. The next fight showed a Vorthik female against a 3-armed Nexari. The Vorthik looked like a large lizard that walked on 2 legs. When the fight started, electricity sparked between her fingers. She touched the Nexari once, and he collapsed as his muscles stopped working. Maya watched several more fights. Each alien species had different advantages. Some were fast. Others were strong. A few had natural weapons or special abilities. But they all moved in ways that Maya understood. Her grandfather had taught her to see the truth behind any fighting style. "Rodriguez, Maya. Human. You are up in Ring 3, announced a mechanical voice. Maya stood up and walked toward the arena entrance. Behind her, she heard aliens placing bets. How long before the human goes down? 20 seconds, maybe 30. If she runs, I say 15 seconds. Humans always freeze up when they see real violence." Maya stepped into the bright lights of the arena. The floor was made of some kind of smart material that could change shape and texture. For her fight, it had been set up to look like a rocky desert with scattered boulders and uneven ground. Her opponent waited on the other side of the ring. His name was Gorth, and he belonged to a species called the Molars. He stood almost 8 feet tall with gray skin that looked like stone armor. Bone spurs stuck out from his knuckles, elbows, and shoulders. His eyes were small and mean. "This is almost not fair," Gorth said. His voice sounded like grinding rocks. "I will try to make it quick, little mammal." The referee was a floating robot that spoke in several languages at once. "Fighters, prepare for combat. Standard rules apply. Fight until one opponent cannot continue. Medical teams are standing by." Maya looked around the arena. Most of the spectators were reading news feeds or talking to each other. A few had bet money on the fight and were watching with mild interest. None of them expected to see anything. Exciting. In the VIP section, Commander Thane sat with other military officers from various species. "This should be amusing," he said. "Watch how quickly mammals break when faced with real danger." The countdown began. 10 seconds. Maya breathed slowly and watched Gorth's stance. His weight was slightly forward on his left foot. His right shoulder was higher than his left. These were small things, but they told her how he would move. 5 seconds. Gorth flexed his bone spurs and grinned, showing sharp teeth. He had probably won dozens of fights by scaring his opponents before the real fighting started. 3 seconds. Maya shifted her weight slightly. Her movements were so small that nobody in the audience noticed them. 1 second. The arena fell quiet except for the hum of the lights and air recycling systems. 0. The starting horn blared. Gorth charged forward with surprising speed for someone his size. His bone spurs were extended and ready to tear through human flesh. He had done this many times before. Smaller opponents always tried to run or dodge when they saw him coming. Maya did not run. She did not dodge. Instead, she stepped directly into his path and dropped low. What happened next took less than 3 seconds, but it seemed to happen in slow motion. Maya's right hand moved in a precise arc and struck Gorth's left knee at exactly the right angle. The impact hit a specific point where his leg bones connected. His own momentum and weight worked against him as his knee bent in a direction it was not meant to go. At the same time, Maya's left hand found a spot beneath his armored chest plate. Her grandfather had taught her that every body, no matter how strong or protected, had weak points. She pressed against a nerve cluster that most species shared. Gorth's nervous system sent confused signals to his brain. His muscles stopped responding correctly. His charge became a stumble, then a fall. The massive warrior crashed face first into a boulder with enough force to crack the reinforced stone. His body went limp, and he did not move. The arena fell completely silent. Maya stood in the center of the ring, not even breathing hard. She looked calm, as if nothing unusual had happened. The referee's mechanical voice cut through the silence. Winner, Rodriguez. Time, 9.7 seconds. For several heartbeats, nobody moved or spoke. Then confused murmuring began in the stands. Spectators looked at each other, trying to understand what they had just seen. Maya walked toward the exit without looking at the crowd or acknowledging their confusion. Behind her, medical teams rushed to check on Gorth, who was slowly regaining consciousness, but could not yet stand. Commander Thane leaned forward in his seat. His mouth was open and his eyes were wide. What just happened? He asked the alien. Sitting next to him, I do not know, was the reply. The human moved, and then Gorth was down. I have never seen anything like it. In the fighter waiting area, conversation stopped as Maya returned. Aliens who had been joking about her minutes earlier now stared in shock. Some backed away as she passed, as if they were afraid to get too close. Maya found her bench and sat down. She closed her eyes and began to breathe slowly, preparing for her next fight. Around her, the room buzzed with excited and confused voices in dozens of languages. How did she do that? Gorth has never lost a preliminary fight. What kind of weapon was she hiding? Maya ignored the questions and comments. She had more fights ahead of her, and each one would be harder than the last. But for now, she had sent a message to the galaxy. Humans were not as weak as they appeared. News of Maya's victory spread through Nexus Prime Station like fire in dry grass. Within 2 hours, every screen on the station was showing the recording of her fight with Gorth. Combat experts watched the footage over and over, trying to understand what had happened. Maya sat in the medical examination room while Dr. Williams ran his tests. The doctor was a thin man with gray hair who had worked with human fighters for years. He had never seen anything like what Maya had done. The scans show nothing unusual, Dr. Williams said, looking at his screen with confusion. No cybernetic implants, no chemical enhancers, no hidden technology. You are completely natural. Maya nodded. I told you that already, Doc. But how did you move so fast? How did you know exactly where to hit Gorth? His species has been studied for decades. Their weak points are not common knowledge. Maya looked out the window at the busy station corridor. Aliens walked by in groups, many of them pointing at her through the glass. My grandfather taught me to see things that others miss. What kind of training could produce results like this? Before Maya could answer, Captain Johnson entered the room. Her face was serious, and she carried a datapad filled with information. Rodriguez. We have a problem, Johnson said. Half the galaxy thinks you are hiding some kind of secret weapon. The other half thinks humans have been lying about our abilities for decades. Dr. Williams turned to face the captain. The medical scans prove she is not enhanced in any way. But her performance should not be possible for a baseline human. That is what makes this dangerous, Johnson replied. Species representatives are demanding explanations. Some are calling for Maya to be disqualified. Others want to know if all humans have these abilities. Maya stood up from the examination table. Let me worry about the next fight, Captain. Politics can wait. Johnson looked at her datapad. Your next opponent is Vexandra, a Zephyrian assassin. She has 4 arms and can move each one independently. Her saliva contains a toxin that can kill most species in minutes. She studied the recording of your fight with Gorth and has been planning strategies to counter your techniques. Good, Maya said. That means she takes me seriously now. The 3 humans looked at Maya with surprise. Most people would be worried about facing a professional killer with natural advantages and deadly poison. Maya seemed almost pleased by the challenge Dr. Williams shook his head. I do not understand you, Rodriguez. You act like fighting these creatures is normal for humans. Maya smiled. It is normal, Doc. We just forgot what normal used to mean. 2 hours later, Maya returned to the arena for her second preliminary fight. The crowd was much larger now. Word had spread about the human who had defeated Gorth in seconds, and beings from all over the station had come to see if she could do it again. The betting pools had gone crazy. Nobody knew what odds to give a human fighter anymore. Some aliens were putting large amounts of money on Maya, while others insisted her first victory was just luck. The arena floor had been reconfigured to look like a small city with narrow alleys and buildings of different heights. This setup favored fighters who could climb and jump well, or who had ranged weapons. Vexandra waited on a rooftop across from where Maya entered. The Zephyrian assassin was tall and thin with pale blue skin. Her 4 arms each held a different weapon: poison darts, a neural disruptor, and 2 energy guns. She had positioned herself to attack from above while staying out of reach. Fighters, prepare for combat, announced the referee robot. The match will begin in 30 seconds. Maya looked around the arena. She studied the buildings, the distances between them, and the way shadows fell across the narrow streets. Most importantly, she watched Vexandra's positioning and body language. The assassin was confident in her plan. She had chosen her spot carefully and armed herself for a long-range fight. But confidence could be a weakness if it made someone predictable. 10 seconds, said the referee. Maya shifted her weight slightly and placed her hands at her sides. To the spectators, she looked ready to run for cover when the fighting started. That was exactly what she wanted them to think. 5 seconds. Vexandra raised her weapons and aimed at the spot where Maya would probably try to hide. The assassin had done this many times before. Smaller, weaker opponents always looked for cover first. Begin. The horn sounded, and Vexandra immediately fired all her weapons at once. Poison darts whistled through the air. The neural disruptor sent invisible waves of energy toward its target. Both energy guns fired beams of concentrated heat. Maya was not there. In the 3 seconds between the warning and the start signal, Maya had read everything she needed to know from Vexandra's stance and weapon positions. The assassin was right-handed and favored her upper arms for precision shots. She had chosen a rooftop that gave her good sight lines but limited her escape routes. Vexandra focused on the ground where Maya should have been. The human had already moved. She used handholds and ledges that the assassin had not noticed, climbing the building's side in complete silence. Vexandra sensed movement behind her and spun around. All 4 arms swung their weapons toward the new threat. Maya was already inside the assassin's reach, too close for ranged weapons to be effective. Maya's hand shot out and touched a specific point on Vexandra's neck. The spot was located where several major nerves came together. When pressed in exactly the right way, it caused temporary paralysis in most humanoid species. Vexandra's 4 arms went limp. Her weapons clattered to the rooftop as her motor functions shut down. She remained conscious, but could not move or speak. Winner, Rodriguez. Time, 8.4 seconds. This time, the arena did not fall silent. Instead, it erupted in shocked voices and heated arguments. Aliens jumped to their feet, shouting in dozens of languages. Some cheered while others demanded explanations. In the VIP section, species representatives began arguing with each other. The hegemony trade minister pointed at his colleagues. You said humans were harmless mammals. Look at this creature. She moves like a predator. Commander Thane was no longer laughing. This changes everything we know about human capabilities. If one human can do this, what about the rest of them? Security forces moved into the stands to calm the crowds. Tournament. Officials huddled together, trying to decide how to handle the situation. Some wanted to examine Maya again for hidden technology. Others suggested changing the rules mid-tournament. Maya walked calmly toward the exit, ignoring the chaos around her. Behind her, medical teams helped Vexandra down from the rooftop. The assassin was slowly regaining movement in her limbs, but her pride would take longer to heal. In the medical bay, Dr. Williams waited with more questions. Maya, I need to understand what you are doing. These techniques you are using, where do they come from? Maya sat down and accepted a glass of water. They come from Earth, Doc, from a time before we had cities or technology or space travel. What do you mean? I mean, we learned to fight because everything on our world was trying to kill us. We got good at it because the ones who were not good at it did not survive to have children. Dr. Williams stared at her. You are talking about human evolution, about survival instincts. I am talking about knowledge that my grandfather's grandfather learned from his grandfather. Knowledge that goes back thousands of years. Maya stood up and looked toward the arena. Tomorrow, I will show the galaxy what humans really are. Outside, the crowds were still arguing about what they had witnessed. None of them realized they had only seen the beginning. The championship fight had been moved to the Grand Arena, the largest combat space on Nexus Prime Station. Over 100,000 beings filled the seats, with millions more watching on screens across the galaxy. Representatives from every major species had come to witness what many called the most important fight in galactic history. Maya stood in the fighter preparation room, looking out at the massive crowd through a small window. She had never seen so many aliens in one place. Their voices created a sound like ocean waves, rising and falling as they discussed the upcoming match. Captain Johnson entered the room with Admiral Jackson, the highest-ranking human officer in this sector of space. The Admiral was a tall woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. She looked worried as she approached Maya. Rodriguez, I need you to understand what this fight means, Admiral Jackson said. If you win, it will change how every species in the galaxy sees humanity. If you lose, they might decide we were just lucky twice. Maya turned away from the window. I understand, Admiral, but I cannot think about politics right now. I need to focus on Vexter. The 3-time champion has never lost a fight, Captain Johnson added. He has studied recordings of your previous matches. He knows what you did to Gorth and Vexandra. Admiral Jackson pulled up a holographic display showing Vexter's fight records. His exoskeleton can stop plasma bolts. His claws can cut through starship armor. He has reflexes faster than most computers. How do you plan to beat someone like that? Maya studied the hologram for several minutes. Vexter was 9 feet tall with a crystalline shell that covered most of his body. His species had evolved on a world where everything was sharp and dangerous. They had become living weapons through millions of years of natural selection. He is very impressive, Maya said finally. But he still moves like every other living thing. He has joints that must bend. He has balance points that can be disturbed. He has nerve clusters that control his motor functions. Dr. Williams entered the room carrying his medical scanner. Maya, I ran every test I could think of. You are still showing as a completely normal human. No enhancements, no hidden technology, no genetic modifications. That is because I am normal, Doc. This is what humans can do when we remember how. Admiral Jackson frowned. Remember how to do what? Maya looked at the 3 other humans in the room. My grandfather taught me something that most people have forgotten. He learned it from his grandfather, who learned it from the grandfather before him. It goes back to the beginning of human history. What kind of knowledge are you talking about? Dr. Williams asked. The knowledge that kept our species alive for 50,000 years before we built cities. The understanding of how bodies move. how balance works, how to read the smallest signs that tell you what someone will do next. Maya walked to the center of the room. We learned these things because we had to. Earth was not a safe place. Captain Johnson shook her head. But that was primitive fighting. Caveman stuff. How can that work against advanced alien species? Maya smiled. Because bodies are bodies, Captain. Alien or human, if you have muscles and joints and nerves, then you follow the same basic rules. My grandfather taught me to see those rules. The announcement system crackled to life. Final match participants report to the arena. Championship fight begins in 10 minutes. Maya walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Admiral, no matter what happens out there, remember that humans survived the Ice Age with nothing but their hands and their brains. We are not as weak as we look. The Grand Arena had been configured as a neutral fighting space with a flat floor and no obstacles. This was meant to be a pure test of skill between two fighters. Vexter wanted no advantages, except his own natural abilities. Maya entered from the south gate, while Vexter came from the north. The crowd fell silent as the two fighters walked toward the center of the arena. The size difference was dramatic. Vexter towered over Maya like a giant made of living crystal. You have surprised many, Vexter said when they met in the middle. His voice was deep and resonated through his crystal shell. But I have studied your previous fights. I will not be caught off guard by human tricks. Maya bowed respectfully. Thank you for taking me seriously. The referee robot floated between them. This is the championship match of the annual Apex Challenge. Standard rules apply. Fight until one opponent cannot continue. Are both fighters ready? Both Maya and Vexter nodded. In the VIP section, Admiral. Jackson sat with alien dignitaries who had previously dismissed humanity as a minor spacefaring species. The hegemony trade minister leaned over to her. 10,000 credits says your human lasts 30 seconds. Admiral Jackson looked at the nervous alien. I will take that bet. The countdown began. Maya studied Vexter's stance and breathing. Patterns. His crystalline exoskeleton was impressive, but like all armor, it had joints that needed to move. His reach was longer than hers, but that meant he would have trouble with close-quarters fighting. 10 seconds, announced the referee. Vexter's claws extended with a sound like breaking glass. He had used them to end dozens of fights over the years. The sharp edges caught the arena lights and threw rainbow patterns across the floor. 5 seconds. Maya shifted her weight slightly and placed her hands at her sides. For the first time in the tournament, she looked tense. Vexter was not like her previous opponents. He was a true apex predator, evolved for combat and trained by the best instructors in the galaxy. Begin. The horn sounded, and Vexter moved with deadly grace. His approach was measured and controlled, giving Maya no obvious openings to exploit. His 3 previous championships had taught him patience. Maya feinted left, then right, studying his movement patterns. Vexter's exoskeleton was flexible, but not perfect. Every time he shifted his weight to attack, there was a tiny pause in his left shoulder rotation. The flaw was so small that only someone trained to see such things would notice it. For 6 seconds, they circled each other. Vexter tested Maya's defenses while she mapped the weak points in his crystal armor. The crowd held its breath as the 2 fighters moved like dancers in a deadly ballet. Then Maya saw her chance. Vexter raised his right claw for his finishing move, the same combination that had ended his last dozen fights. His weight shifted forward onto his left leg, and his shoulder joint rotated exactly as Maya had predicted. Maya stepped into the attack instead of away from it. Her timing was perfect, honed by years of training that went back generations. Her right hand struck the precise point where Vexter's shoulder connected to his exoskeleton. The impact was delivered at exactly the right angle, with exactly the right force. The shockwave traveled through Vexthor's entire left side, disrupting his balance for just a fraction of a second. That was all. Maya needed her follow-up strike, targeted the nerve cluster beneath Vexthor's jaw, one of the few spots unprotected by his natural armor. The defending champion's enhanced reflexes worked against him, amplifying the feedback from the precise blow. Vexthor's legs buckled, and he collapsed to the arena floor. His nervous system was overwhelmed by signals it could not process. The three-time Galactic champion lay still, defeated by a human who weighed less than one of his arms. The grand arena fell completely silent. 100,000 beings from across the galaxy stared in stunned disbelief at the small human standing over their fallen champion. Winner Rodriguez. Time 9.0 seconds. New Apex champion. The silence broke into absolute chaos. Species representatives shouted in dozens of languages, while security forces struggled to maintain order. In the human section, Admiral Jackson smiled as she collected her winnings from the pale hegemony minister. Maya accepted the championship trophy from a shocked tournament official and walked to the center of the arena. When she raised the crystal trophy above her head, the human delegation erupted in cheers that echoed through the massive space stop later that night. Maya sat in her quarters, looking out at the stars. The trophy sat on her desk, catching light from the distant suns. Her communication screen showed dozens of messages from reporters, scientists, and military officials who wanted to understand what they had witnessed. Captain Johnson appeared on the screen via secure link. Rodriguez, every major species in the galaxy is asking the same question. How did you do it? Maya looked at the stars beyond Nexus Prime. Tell them we have always been this way, Captain. We just forgot to mention it. What should I tell them? About human capabilities? Maya stood up and moved to the window. Tell them we are the species that survived ice ages and supervolcano eruptions. We looked at every dangerous creature on our world and figured out how to hunt them. We learned to read body language and micro-expressions because our lives depended on knowing what others were thinking. She paused and watched a human transport ship dock at the station. We have been studying combat for 50,000 years. Captain, we just called it something else. What did we call it? Maya smiled as she watched more human ships arrive, drawn by news of her victory. We called it survival. The next morning brought formal requests from every major species for martial arts exchanges with humanity. The human colonial fleet received offers for military cooperation that would have been unthinkable just days before.